Good evening, Graham, and good evening to our special guest tonight, David Gedge, leader of the Wedding Present and
Mighty David Gedge.
formerly of the parish of Cinerama 2, and soon to be the subject, or his band is soon to be the subject of a musical, which we will come on to. Graham, you're kind of reconnecting with all your yesterdays through David, and perhaps therefore, if you would do the more formal yet informal introduction to David, please.
Well, yeah, if this was like 25 years ago, it would have been quite an easy introduction. Fantastic band Wedding Present, 80s fantastic, 90s fantastic, 12 singles in the top 30 in a single year. It was all
1992.
great. Yeah, it was all non-stop great. And I would be at the front of a Wedding Present gig in 1990, leaping up and down like a madman to Kennedy off Bizarro. And then by 1997, I was doing Charm magazine, and this is what is so amazing to me now was that David actually supported me so much with Charm magazines and gigs that
Mm.
looking back at the time, I thought, well, it's a good magazine. I sort of deserved David to write a monthly column about all these musical doings. I deserve to have interviews with him regularly. I deserve
Yeah.
that Cinerama should play a Charm gig in Harrogate, Raising etc. and, and I thought it was all totally normal. And looking back, it was completely abnormal. And I am just overwhelmed with gratitude for how much David supported me all those years ago.
And
And
so much.
since I stopped doing Charm,
I can't
David has
believe
just not stopped. He's like a non-stop cottage industry meets music legend, and the variety of what he's done since then is
Mm.
just phenomenal. It's really impressive.
Well, there's an introduction, David. How do you react to Graham there?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was say I can't believe I did so much for him. He owes me so much.
Absolutely. So the reason, David, that we're getting together this evening, and we really do appreciate you joining us, twofold really. It's the 40th anniversary of the Wedding Present, a band that formed through Leeds University, where you were studying mathematics. We met up earlier this year, David and I, and the revelation as to why you were studying mathematics was that it could be an easier degree to let you concentrate on your music. I thought was a fascinating revelation that even then, actually, the focus really was always going to be on the music.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was just like a sensible person, so I just thought I should probably have a degree to fall back on if my musical aspirations kind of tanked really. But luckily they didn't. So I went to university. I did maths because I was good at school at
Mm,
maths, and I
mm.
remember at the beginning of like double maths lessons, all my friends were like, "Oh my God, I hate this day." And I was thinking, well, actually, I quite like it. It's dead easy, and I
Yeah,
seem to.
yeah.
I used to sail through it, and so
Yes.
I'll do that at university, and I'll have the same, skills there, and I'll have
Mm.
plenty to be in a band. Unfortunately, at university, it did get substantially more difficult and more boring. So I kind of regret it now. I should have done something a bit more glamorous, like French, or and had a year
Well, of
in.
course, you then formed Cinerama, so that there you are. You can indulge in your French then, So
Yeah,
or
certainly.
Italian or whatever. David, I mean, there it was 40 years ago. What kind of scene in Leeds at the time were you coming into?
Well, actually, when one of the reasons why, because I was born in Leeds, but I grew up in
Yeah,
Manchester.
yeah.
And one of the reasons I went back to Leeds for university was because of the scene. Actually, I
Mm,
remember a couple of things. One is, buying The Enemy every week and Sounds and Melody Maker, and there were so many concerts. Leeds was definitely on the map for touring bands.
yeah.
Well, that was a good thing. And then also there was so many like, I think Leeds has always like punched above its weight, really.
Mm,
You know,
mm.
compared to Manchester and Glasgow and London and places and Bristol. It's not a massive city, but even at that time in the kind of late 90s, sorry, late 70s, early 80s, it was the Gang of Four were there, and
Yes, yeah.
uh, yeah, Sisters of Mercy were starting. There's lots of bands, and it's like a lead scene certainly, and a lot of those bands went on to achieve a certain amount of success really. So yeah, it was like a bit
Although
like,
the media has a habit of always looking to Manchester and always looking to Liverpool and not looking to Leeds.
yeah, and that's what I kind of mean with that. I suppose Manchester's bigger, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, more famous in a way.
Mm.
Around the world, people know Manchester and Liverpool and stuff, but they don't really know Leeds. But yeah, it's always come up with more than its fair share of bands and things.
Mm. Graham.
David's whole career has never stopped changing. And when David kindly got involved with Charm magazine in the Cinerama days, it was quite a departure because he'd gone from the sort of like slightly angsty vocals, melody, and fast strumming guitars a wedding present into the sort of like lush film instrumentals of like Cinerama, influenced by Ennio Morricone and John Barry, and
Mm.
it was all a bit seductive and sort of erotic. And I remember like saying to David that, if David sang in French the whole time and in fact came from France, he'd be judged a hell lot better in Britain. But because he's from Leeds, he was never quite given the credit he deserved.
The Jacques Brel of
But he,
Leeds.
but he kept on going. He kept on experimenting. So, I mean, the last Wedding Present album, Going Going, is
Mm.
such a vast tapestry of different styles
Mm. Mm.
and avant-garde stuff as well as bits of punk music and post-punk and gorgeous, beautiful instrumentals. And then with Cinerama, he moved into like David Gedge and the BBC Big Band in 2009.
Yeah.
And so he's not just a cottage industry who sort of like works with the wedding present reputation. He keeps on forging out. And I can't help but think that the musical that's coming up shortly in Leeds is part of that whole story of David always reaching out for something new.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, I never wanted to be one of those bands that do an album, do a tour, write some songs, do another album, do another tour, write some. It gets this conveyor belt of albums. I've always been interested in going off at weird tangents. I mean, even the very early days, we did the Ukrainian stuff with John
The
Peel.
John Peel sessions. Yeah. Mm.
Then obviously Cinerama is completely different, and yeah, like you say, I mean the musical is it's funny because when Matt, who was the writer and I suppose director and producer as well, really,
Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of like, well, I know nothing about that format, musicals. In fact, I'm not even sure I like musicals very much. And I mean, he persuaded me into it because he said, my lyrics are very, more than suitable for for a musical. So I kind of said yes, but on reflection, I think it's those kind of things that, like the big band thing. I don't, I'm not sure that was 100% successful, but it's just nice to step outside of the normal kind of world of what I do and try something that was just completely off the wall. And if people are going to give me these invitations to do things that are like that, I find it difficult to say no, really, because why should why would I say no?
David, when you say it wasn't necessarily 100% successful, what makes you feel that? I mean, did you enjoy the experience, or actually was it something that maybe you felt, no, I could have done it differently, or could have done it better?
Because it's possibly going to be the same with the musical because I'm not the chief kind of protagonist. I'm actually collaborating with the people, and I'm a bit of a control freak, I think. So if I'm not in total control, I'm never going to be happy with the final.
No.
The final project. And with the big band, it was it wasn't my thing. It was basically someone arranging songs for a big band in a particularly avant-garde style. So just using my words and music. So because I wasn't that involved, yes, there were certain things I would have done differently. But then so I did find it a bit challenging, and maybe it could have been better. But yeah, as I say, it was it wasn't my project really, even though it was about me. And B, I think it's sometimes to let go, let someone else take the reins and see what they do. Really.
That's where, I mean, when you referred to Matt earlier, that just for our listeners' benefit, that's Matt Aston from York, writer director, has done a lot of productions both in York and in Nottingham, and a familiar figure actually in the COVID year where he did outdoor theatre in the city. So he's always looking to do interesting theatre as well. And I mean, it's interesting with doing a musical, David, that again, actually the level of control of involvement is going to be less, just as it would be with the BBC big band. You have to hand over script, you have to hand over directing, have to hand over songs, how they will be used. But I mean, your enthusiasm and involvement, I mean, you could have said, presumably you could have said no to the project, but you've said yes. And I wonder, when you think, okay, yeah, let's go with this. I mean, I guess it's as much as anything, it will be interesting for you to see how David Gedge's songs are used in a musical.
Well, that's the reason. I'm flattered as well to
Yeah.
have been approached. So, it takes my work to a different area, and I'm interested to see, what will really. I mean, it could be terrible for all I know, but I'm happy to say that. I'm sure it won't be terrible.
Well,
But
David, I'm going to throw Sunshine on Leith at you, the Proclaimers musical.
well, funnily enough,
which is why I'm just throwing that one, because can you see you can see how their songs were used, and I think that's encouraging, actually.
Yeah, people are saying, musical. A lot of like Wedding Present fans have been kind of, going, what? That sounds horrendous. It's not the kind of thing that an indie rock band would be doing, but people tell me there's quite a few bands they've done them recently. So I don't know, maybe it's the age that we're all approaching now that it doesn't seem quite as.
It's the 40th year, and so why not? I mean, obviously we've had the Kinks musical. Obviously, there's been musicals with Beatles, Beatles music involved in it.
Queen.
We
Will Rock You.
Yeah, Queen with We Will Rock You. ABBA, of course. So I mean, you're right up there, David. When you look at it, on that level, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of the storyline within it, I mean, has Matt involved you in that, or have you just had to let him do that?
I've let him do it. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen a draft of it. I've not seen a more version.
Yeah.
Because he started this a few years ago. Actually,
he did. Yeah.
And he was with the pandemic. It was all postponed. But I think at that point, so maybe 4 years ago, he sent me like a script, and I mean, I didn't make a lot of comments because I thought, well, I'm not writing this, so. But but also it was good. There was 2 acts, and Act 1 was great, and I thought Act kind of wasn't quite as good, and so I told him that, and he said, funnily enough, I actually agree with that.
Yeah.
I work more than that. So that was the only thing I said, really, and I've not seen a revised one. So I'm actually going to rehearsals.
Are you? Yes.
In a week. I'll be interested to see.
Yeah, so this show, again, for benefit of the listeners, is going to be running at Slung Low's new home, which is the warehouse that's in Holbeck, Leeds. It's going to be running from August the 22nd to September the 6th. So get your tickets, get your bookings on, and you can even do a special ticket where you can actually, because it's reception, you can think of it as being like a wedding reception, and so there are some kind of special tickets which make it more of a kind of wedding reception type of experience, which is an interesting concept in itself. The musical structure, as I understand it, David, takes the idea of 5 different ceremonies, I think, including a wedding and including a wedding reception. And a funeral, so it's not quite 4 weddings and a funeral, but it's a kind of variant, a variant, for wedding presents and a funeral. But it's a variant on that. As a structure, what struck you about that?
I mean, I think it was like you say, it's a way of like telling a story, isn't it? And he's picked certain events which are quite meaningful to people in their lives, and I think he was probably inspired by the lyrics. Well, he did say, the reason why he wanted to do a wedding present musical is because of the lyrics, basically.
I mean, they are storytelling lyrics, David, aren't they? I mean, surely. I mean, I mean, we've discussed before how many versions of Love Going Wrong can David Gedge come up with? Well, he's always got another one.
Stop there. There's Love Going Right as well. And,
now, okay, David.
The interesting thing about David's lyrics, though, are that for a man writing lyrics about relationships, they're really honest and they're not bitter and petulant. David's lyrics about men and women were way ahead of the curve. He was writing that way in the 80s when that wasn't your normal way of writing about those subjects. And that's why it works with the musical, because they're three-dimensional lyrics about relationships. They're not the usual thing you get, especially not from an indie rock band.
No, and they're very conversational.
Yeah.
They're,
Mm.
Mm.
people say when they're seeing my lyrics written down, it often looks like a dialogue from a screenplay or something. And yeah, I've always been very interested in the way people talk to each other, how they say things, and why they say it and how they say it, and so yeah, it's kind of an obvious, source of material for something like this, I think.
David, let's just pick you up on Love Goes Right, because I was,
Oh, I was going to say,
yeah,
about,
go on.
people always say, "Oh, yeah, I'm really great at writing these songs. Oh, my girlfriend's left me."
Yeah, yeah.
I
I've got to
am.
be honest, they're the ones that I'm drawn to. But anyway, go on.
I am really good at doing that. However, I've always been very interested in the whole universe of,
Yes.
relationships. So I'm interested in, falling in love, falling out of love, yes, but I'm also interested in lust, in jealousy, in,
Yeah.
resentment, all those things. And
Yeah.
it's people often say, have you kind of cornered yourself into this room because there's only so much you can write about, and there isn't, because it's such a massive subject. You can have like almost one conversation with somebody at the
Mm.
beginning, end of a relationship, and they can get an album's worth of material out of that, because there's so many different strands and different, you can look at my angle, their angle, an observer's angle. It's like a myriad of possibilities.
Because you use different voices within the songs.
Yeah, I try to. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
So
And also,
it's not just the one perspective.
no,
And
I
that's and
mean,
that's important, how to look at love in those different ways, because as soon as there are two partners in a love story, there are different perspectives.
yeah. And I always try to keep it, not particularly male as well. I always try to keep it gender free or fluid or whatever. I mean, I suppose there is an argument that, the better ones are the ones when I'm writing about myself, because it's like any art form. I think, if you're writing about what you really, really know,
Mm.
obviously going to be more passionate and it's going to be more intense and intimate and personal. But I do put myself in various other positions to try and imagine what would happen if it wasn't me. If it was something happening to me that's not happened. If you see what I mean. So
Mm.
it's just a basic exploration of that whole.
What about the changes then, David, as a man writing in your 20s to as a man writing in your 60s about love?
Well, I think ultimately it's the same thing,
Yeah.
but obviously the kind of environment changes. So when you're in your 60s, you're not walking home because you missed the last bus, and so I think the actual detail changes.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I think fundamentally it's the same kind of thing, really, and I think that's why it's such an appeal. If you look at Motown, those like classic love songs
Mm. Mm.
are still popular today. With all age groups, because they say things to people, and great films, great books, great comics. If it's something which is about, it's like Spider-Man comics. Yeah, I don't know why I've jumped onto this, but I used to love Spider-Man. When I was a kid, and obviously, yeah, he's a superhero. He's fighting the Green Goblin. But I think one of the best things about those comics was the relationships he had, with his girlfriends and his mum, sorry, his aunt, and
Yeah.
his aunt died, and that kind of thing. And that moved into the films, and that became a hook in the films really as well. So I think it all comes down to this thing, which is just the way humans relate to each other.
Graham.
Yeah, I was thinking, to go off on a tangent about At the Edge of the Sea, your mini festival you do every single year in Brighton. I
Hmm.
believe you've got the Loft playing this year, uh,
Uh,
on August the 9th. But you're also playing Cinerama's second album, Disco Volante,
mhm.
which will be interesting to hear. Do you think different? Because when you were doing Cinerama in the late 90s, early noughties, I remember you at your time weren't sure yourself whether this was actually going to turn out great or not. But looking back all these years later, when you play the songs now, have you got a better sense of how good they are?
I do, yes. I'm actually I'm very proud of them now. I think
Mm.
obviously it was a new thing for me, so I didn't really know what I was doing. I've had no musical training, so here I was, pretending that I could orchestrate music for strings
Yeah.
and orchestral brass and all the rest of it. And it was purely because in the mid 90s, technology became available where you could do that on a computer. So I thought, well, I'll have a go, and what's the worst that can happen? And I did learn a lot, obviously, in those years. But to answer your question, looking back now, yeah, I think some of those arrangements stand up really well, and there's possibly certain things I would change, but then that's the same with anything that you did years ago. So. Uh, yeah, I think it's, and yeah, Disco Volante is one of my favorite albums, actually.
Mm.
I
Yeah, it's really good.
You revisited Va Va Voom, of course, David. You did a 25th anniversary version with newly arranged string quartet parts for that. Was all that part of that thing you mentioned that, actually not musically trained, and therefore in some ways Cinerama early on obviously was an experimental element to it. When you return to it 25 years later, I guess part of that project would it be to make it more fulfilling, or just different, or had you felt there were things that actually you could improve from the original recording of it?
Well, the main reason, to be honest with you, is because it was the Vava Voom was like a real solo album. It was just
Yeah,
basically me wrote all the songs at home on my computer, took them
yeah.
in the studio, and we brought in session musicians to play the various parts. So there was never a band or anything. And then when we started playing songs live, and actually, we planned to do Vava Voom live at the Edge of the Sea a couple of years ago.
Mm.
And I just thought, actually, as a band, it's got a totally different feel to the original sort of studio version. And I just thought it was maybe worth rewriting. It sounds gone all really weird. Can you hear that? Or is that just my end?
Hmm. It has no, I can hear it as well, David.
Yeah, went
Hmm.
a bit echoey or something.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, so we just decided to go in as a band and record it, and yeah, and also yeah, when I did the strings for Baba Voom, I had basically high strings and low strings because I didn't know what they were, It's like, oh, there's a high bit, and then subsequently I've realized, okay, you've got like violins, viola, cellos, double bass, whatever. So I thought I'd go back and actually kind of redo those part, so it could be played by a live string quartet, as it was in that
Hmm.
case.
Excellent. But I remember at the time that one of your producers of Cinerama, Dave Mason, said that you were a bit like a Leeds Barry White,
Did he?
which, which is
No,
it
I've
still
never heard that
sounds
before,
ridiculous to this
David.
very day. But
Fantastic.
wasn't Disco Volante produced by the late Steve Albini?
It was, yeah. Well, kind of. We actually recorded the
Yeah.
band. I think we were on a North America tour, so we decided to pop into Chicago, where he has a studio, and recorded all the band there. And then I brought the tapes back and added all the instrumentation, all the orchestration and the vocals and stuff here. So it's kind of
Mm.
half, but you can definitely hear it actually on that record.
Yeah.
The drums sound amazing. It's the classic Albini kind of big drum sound, and yeah.
Yeah, no, but it doesn't sound like Sea Monsters though.
No, not at all.
Just,
Well, that's the thing.
unfortunately.
Albini is known for these kind of like intense rock records, but he's done quite a lot of
Mm,
stuff. Not,
Mm.
he's just a really good engineer. He was really good at recreating, especially a live sound, in the
Mm.
studio.
mm,
And yeah, he could do it with. I mean, he's recorded strings. He's recorded Led Zeppelin. Yeah. So with Cinerama, it was it was like half a band and half the orchestral. I
mm,
also it's a bit like you see Elvis Presley live in Las Vegas, and he's got this like mini orchestra, which is
Mm.
essentially like a pop group. They've got drums, bass, guitars, and stuff, but then they've got strings and brass and all the rest of it. And I also thought Cinerama was kind of my stab at that, really.
yeah.
David,
You've done so many
go on, Graham.
tours and done so many gigs across North America over so many
Mm.
years. Now, pardon my ignorance, but have you ever played Las Vegas?
No, actually, yeah, I'm not
Hmm.
sure. I'm not sure we're a Las Vegas band. Although bands do, yeah,
I can
yeah,
see it now. I can see it happening.
yeah,
I can
maybe.
see Wedding Present in Las Vegas, or maybe Cinerama.
We just done a North America tour actually, and we
Mm.
played Dallas a,
Oh yeah.
a couple of weeks ago, and that was my 2000th gig, apparently.
Wow.
Someone at County.
Who's kept the records of that, David?
Well, I mean, I've partly kept the records
Yeah.
on a database, which is now on our website. But
Mm.
so I guess someone's like been there and counted them and sort of works out when the 2000 concert was going to be, and it was Dallas. So.
There's a kind of pattern of reissues, David. You know that several albums you've gone back and revisited and done anniversary editions of. The reasons for doing that, I mean, maybe different from why you did Va Va Voom, but you've revisited wedding present albums as well consistently through the years.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest with you, it's not usually me who decides that. It's usually
Mm.
somebody will come and say, we want to do a 20th anniversary kind of remastering of Bizarro or
Or Tommy or
George Best, and
mm.
and it's usually the case that the original's fallen out of, it's not being pressed at the moment or something, so it's not
Yeah.
available, it's out of print, and then they say, oh, we can do something special with it, and I mean, if the idea is good, I'll just say, okay, yeah, let's do it. Really, I mean, there are a couple I have re-recorded. I
Yeah.
re-recorded and I also
Yeah.
re-recorded George Best and Tommy.
Yes. Yeah.
But the rest of them have just been straightforward, kind of, because when they were mastered back in the 80s and 90s, the technology, especially for digital mastering, wasn't as good as it is now. So there is an argument, to go back and remaster some of those for re-release, because it just sounds closer to what it was in the studio, I think.
Mm. Graham, over to you.
I know there's a new compilation coming out, The Wedding Present, called 40, with unsurprisingly 40 tracks picked by yourself, David, which is coming out on Clue Records on September 19th. Has that got any rarities or new tracks or anything like that?
No, because I wanted it to be like a retrospective of the Wedding Present's 40-year-long career, if you like.
Mm.
And, I didn't want it to be a greatest hits album, partly because we don't
Mm.
really like greatest hits, to be honest. But also, I wanted to represent all the different eras of the band and how we've changed and like over the years. So yeah, I mean, there's one new song on it which at the very end it brings it up to date. Oh, there's that voice again. What's going on? Where's
We've got a ghost in the machine.
And yeah, I mean, some people have said, why couldn't I put demos on and stuff? But I always think about that,
Mm.
There are, Wedding Present and Cinerama demos, but they're demos for a reason. It's because they're works
Yeah.
in progress. And if I'm
That's
not,
interesting because so many bands do release demos now. And Graham, you're not really a great fan of them, are you?
I occasionally buy a box set which has demos on it, and I play the demos once. I never want to play them ever again.
exactly, Graham. I'm really
Mm.
glad that you said that because that's exactly what I think. Why would you
Yeah,
want to half half finished versions of song badly recorded on a demo?
yeah.
I mean, there's
It's
maybe
like
a slight
yeah,
interest here once, like you say, but I don't. Yeah, I
it's
don't,
like satisfying. It's like satisfying a curiosity that you shouldn't satisfy. It's pretty pointless.
it's like would you buy a novel that was half finished because it was a demo version?
No, no. I once read the full length versions of Raymond Carver's short stories, and they were rubbish compared to the finished, heavily edited version. And I thought,
Right.
why did I bother reading this?
Yeah,
Because it
yeah,
wasn't good.
similar. Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to get the title wrong, but I mean, you have, acoustic version and give my regards to Kevin. I think I've got the title slightly wrong, but forgive me if I have. But
I love to Kevin.
there you are. You see, love, not just regards, but love to Kevin. And
Mm.
so you can have acoustic versions, David, obviously, as well as, but they're not demos.
Well, again, I didn't really plan that. It was more because when the pandemic came, and we didn't do At the Edge of the Sea for 2 years, we decided to do an online version, kind of stream from home basically, and so as part of our set, we did record like make home recordings of some songs, and people loved it.
Lockdown and stripped, those.
Down the street, I call it. And the people watching said, "Oh, you got to release this on an album because otherwise the only way you can see it is on this YouTube or whatever." So it was just a case of basically we already had the recordings, we just sent them off to be mastered and released a couple of LPs. So again, I didn't really plan to do that. That was more, the fate of the universe that brought that out, really.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was a rewarding project, I thought.
Uh, I mean, it's interesting to see how songs work where
Mm.
you're not relying on the production. Certainly,
Yeah.
a lot of the wedding present songs are. You mentioned Steve Albini, for instance.
Mm.
Sound of the band sort of playing those things, which actually is half the charm, I think. And then you take that away, and what you're left with is basically chords, melody, lyric, and often, songs might not, stand up to that process really. So it was good to analyze which ones did and which one worked, and which ones even sound better.
Yeah, I think that's where where it's interesting as for you as an artist to see how that works. I mean,
Mm.
here's a generalization, but a really good song will still be a good song when it's stripped back. I don't mean that bloody thing of
Absolutely.
people slowing things down, which seems to be the only tactic you ever hear when people talk about going to do a stripped back version of a song, and they think let's put it at a quarter of the speed it first was, which is tends to be the thing. But actually, a good song will always stand up.
Well,
And
also become
yeah,
more poignant sometimes because it
mm.
it reveals things which you didn't really notice, maybe about the lyric or the melody and things. So,
We
yeah.
touched, David, also on
Hmm.
the sheer variety of the way that you've done things. I mean, there's been, for example, the Valentina project, the story of the wedding present album. That was one. There's been the one where you turned into if I'm generalizing slightly, the cartoon character version of yourself.
Mm.
Um, so again,
That's
you've.
my autobiography, actually.
I know it is, David.
So
I'm just trying
that's
to provoke you
I,
there.
I just decided to do it.
But these are interesting that you've done projects like that, and you've not done it in a conventional way. It is your autobiography, but it's done in a way that a kind of graphic way that's maybe unexpected.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hope so. I mean, that's I think I built a career on doing things which are a bit unexpected.
Do
Uh,
they surprise you as well, though yourself? Have you
of course,
surprised yourself?
yeah.
Yeah,
No one's more surprised than me that I'm involved in
yeah.
it, in music. So, um, but with the autobiography, I mean, I've always been a massive fan of comics. Probably Graham knows this, like, from
Yeah.
Hmm.
talking about it before. But so I always, I grew up with comics. I loved them, and then I became of the age where, in the 80s, there was the kind of graphic novel became a serious art form, and I've always loved all that. So when it came to doing my book, again, I'm looking to ways of doing it a bit differently, and then I
Mm.
just we should just do a comic, and I was lucky to meet well, not me. I knew an artist from years ago who was willing to do the illustrations, and I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of doing what I do, really. That
Mm.
just write little stories and then send them to him, and it comes back as like almost like a film. I see myself in these pictures, and
Yeah.
it's very exciting.
Just to check in the musical, David, there isn't a David Gedge character, is there?
No, there isn't.
Just keen to make that clear to everybody. One of the other things, David, of course, consistently you've done radio sessions and really strong relationships with John Peel, and more recently with Mark Riley. And I just wonder and of course you mentioned, you touched on the Ukrainian radio sessions, which of course were for John Peel, and what you see as the significance of radio sessions, how they are different from live shows, how they're different from studio recordings, and what you particularly like about radio sessions.
Well, I've always been a massive fan of radio,
Mm.
so I kind of grew up listening to Radio One, and that, as a kid, and then John Peel, obviously, and I've always been kind of obsessed. I still am to a certain extent. Uh, but then, so there's that. I like being on the radio, basically. But then also,
Yeah.
there is that urgency that you don't get from, obviously in a traditional recording session. If you do something wrong, you can go back and re-record it. If you're
Mm.
live on
Mm.
BBC Music,
Yeah.
it's too late. So yeah, there's that kind of it adds a level of adrenaline, I think, and anxiousness, which I mean, often people say, like the Peel session version of a track will be, better than the resulting album version because
Mm.
it has got that intensity and that live
Yeah.
excitement to it, I suppose.
Mm. Mm. Graham.
But Wedding Present are on the road again quite a lot between September and December
Hmm.
at home and abroad. And you're coming to the Old Woolen at Farsley on November the 9th. And I saw Martin McAloon of Prefab Sprout play at the same venue a couple of years ago, doing Prefab Sprout on his own. And you're about to play Wedding Present with Rachel Wood for that gig, just the two of you. Now, in comparison to Martin McAloon, that's quite a big lineup, two of you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes back to doing the since we did the lockdown and strip back LPs. I, I have received a lot of invitations to come and do stuff acoustically. Really, and we've done. I mean, mainly in the south, to be honest. I don't know why that is, but we did quite a lot down here. I'm actually in the south now. But then I thought, oh, that's it. Yeah, I think Shine. We're doing an acoustic set at Shine. We were invited to do that. The festival, the
Yeah.
Butlins. So I just thought, oh well, let's do some other concerts around that, and let's this time look at the north really. So I think they ended up all being in Yorkshire. It's kind of Leeds and Lincoln, and I know Lincoln's not in Yorkshire, but that kind of area. So
Yeah.
interesting.
I'm
David,
looking forward to it. Should be good.
Go on, Graham. David, one of the
It should be
things
good.
when people hear themselves talk, they don't tend not to like their own voice. This might seem an odd question. When you hear yourself sing, how do you feel?
I can certainly see that. I can certainly see people their own voice because it's like anything. As an artist, you want to be as good as you possibly can be. And I'm not the greatest singer in the world. I know that. What I do kind of lack in maybe technical ability, I do make up with passion, I think, hopefully.
Yeah.
I remember when we did George Best, actually, I did the first, it's in the autobiography, this actually. I did the first lot of takes. I remember sort of playing back, the recordings and thinking, it's kind of okay. It's in tune, it's in time, but it doesn't sound great. And so I went back and purposely, put more into it and just, try to imagine myself in the situations. And I'm not sure how much difference it made to the average listener, but to me, it made, it sounded more intense and it sounded more involving, with the listener. So, and that's been my style ever since, I think.
Yeah. Before we close, just to mention another event coming up, David. This one is going to be in New York, an evening of conversation and music with David Gedge. This is going to be at Rise at Bluebird Bakery, which is on Acomb Road, Acomb. And the thrust of this is that David will do a Q&A with Anna Cook, and then Matt Aston, writer-director of Reception, will join on stage and talk about Reception, the Wedding Present musical, with David. And then, David, you're going to finish with maybe 20 minutes of acoustic songs, presumably a solo performance with that. Just tell me how that came about, that show. And I mean, that's, again, a different way of presenting things again.
I mean, a couple of things. One is that Matt wanted to do something to, I suppose, promote the musical.
Yeah.
And it coincides with my attending a rehearsal of it. So while I was up there, he said, "Oh, we'll do a little concert."
Yeah.
At the same time, I actually did a thing in Pontefract in Yorkshire a few weeks ago, and it was that. It was
right. Yeah.
With Amanda, she's called
Amanda, not Anna.
Yeah.
Is that the Cat
Amanda
Club?
You're right, Amanda.
Is that the Cat Club?
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it's really good. The Cat Club.
I thought it was, I thought it was really, it's such a great idea for, they do it every Thursday, and they just play a classic album and hopefully get the artist to come in and chat about it. And it was really well done and researched. And I just thought, when Matt said, do you want to, do something in York? Obviously, like a bloke with an acoustic guitar, it's all well and good, but it can get a bit boring. But let's do something else, and let's bring Amanda up and recreate that Q&A. So, and you get audience participation, and people ask all sorts of weird and wonderful questions.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic Sub production.